So, guys, I want to talk about a news article. And what happened a few weeks ago was that there was this graduation in Wisconsin, and there was this girl that was white. And what happened was that she was there to shake the hands of faculties because she was receiving an award. And then what happened was that her father steps up, and then he actually pushes the superintendent out of the way. And there's a couple of stories about this that some people are saying it's because he's African American and he doesn't want his daughter touching the hand of a black man. And then there's other people that are saying that okay, maybe what happened at a prior event was that maybe this superintendent disrespected his daughter or did not give her attention when she was an event where she should have been recognized. And then there's a third story where that he disagreed with his politics, that maybe he was talking about budgets or something like that, and he's like, you know what, you're how you're doing your job or what you're agreeing to as far as budgeting and other things like that is despicable. So there's a couple of things to say about it. That I've watched some videos right now, but I think that the consensus I get is that people don't know the exact reason why he did this. But there's a lot of people who jump and say it's okay, it's a white man disrespecting a black man, and obviously, there's two things about it. That if that's the case, then f him, man. That's not right. As somebody who is mixed race, there are some people who feel entitled to disrespect me or call me out for my skin color. Like, I remember, going to college and I had a bunch of freshers assume that I'm a black guy, or they would say the word nigger in class, or assume that my role is to be the black writer. I'm supposed to be like this wannabe James Baldwin, or I'm supposed to like kiss Barack Obama's ass because I went to college when Obama was president. So definitely in higher education, but also in high schools and other places, it's a lot of people coming in really. So definitely there are still huge issues of racism. So that's definitely, I can tell from personal experience that's definitely an issue. As a person that's multiracial, people think that I'm a black man, so therefore people will say, okay, well, I'm supposed to behave this way, I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to do that. I'm supposed to subjugate myself to certain stereotypes. But we also live in a country that I feel like, people feel a little bit more entitled. I think that's one news report said that obviously, because he's white, there are plenty of people that feel like, okay, you see Donald Trump, like doing like the salutes, and then you see like another time a few years ago where there was a high school graduation, people were doing Nazi salutes. That there's some people who feel like they can be openly bigoted. So if this was a racial thing, this honestly is just a reminder of how we've kind of gotten to a culture of such entitlement that people feel like they can just be publicly racist and disrespect African Americans. And I think that if that's the case, and we're getting back to that time, really, there has to be more like civil rights protests and other things like that to say, we're not going back to that, really, because that's not good. And then also too, there's always that stereotype of black people where if a black man, is educated or very cultured, a lot of people think that they can mess with that person just to be like, okay, you're not a cultured black man, you're still a dirty nigger that can be set off really, and once again, I'll talk about my experience with a 4-year film project where I've dealt with disrespect and racism and other bad experiences, just because that's a method that some racist people are use. It was like, oh well, I can get under this minority skin, so they look like a nigger, they look like one of those gangsters and hoodlums, so therefore they may behave badly and stuff. And then everybody's like, oh well, they're not a culture, they're not a superintendent, they're not someone who worked hard and done great things, they're still like that hood nigga or whatever, but overlooking the fact that that person's been harassed and antagonized. So, so there's a lot to say about it. But then the other issue is that if this is not a racist thing, this is generally a guy who disagrees with the superintendent over something, or he felt that his daughter was disrespected in the past, or he felt that his daughter was disrespected by this guy's policies, that's a little bit more sad because obviously, it gets lost in what we see. That obviously everybody's going to jump to racism because people know that racism happens in America a lot. So definitely, it's a bad look of him to really just feel so entitled to just put his hands on somebody else, really. And and that's just not good at all. You keep your hands to yourself. And it kind of goes down to this culture that we see of generation entitlement. You know what? If I don't like something, I feel the right to put my hands on somebody. I think a few months ago we were talking about how there was this older woman in her 40s who didn't like how there was a bunch of girls that were in their 20s, and there was this one girl that had her skirt short and her butt was kind of showing, so she just grabs this girl, pulls up her skirt, and then now this girl is actually charging this older woman of sexual battery, and rightfully so, because we live in this culture of, if I do not like something, I have the right to alter somebody's body. I remember going to a WWE show a few weeks ago. There's somebody that was tapping my back with their finger very, very sharply because I was standing up a little too much. And I felt that that was disrespectful. I mean, I understand that there's a difference because obviously if somebody's disrupting an event, and they want to get somebody's attention, really, that's different. But there are people that would cold cock somebody over that and be like, you know what, you don't put your hands on me. Or I remember like at work, I was sexually harassed. There was a guy rubbing my chest, really, and feeling my heart and whatever. And I remember like saying, it happens again. I'm going to human resources, but we do live in a culture of, you know what, if if it feels comfortable to me, if I want to go out and do something that I want to do, and if it involves touching somebody, moving somebody out of the way, or altering somebody's clothing or whatever. I'm sorry, there's a fucking idiot moving yet today outside. But I want to say that we live in that culture of like, oh, I'll do whatever I want, really. Like, I remember like getting mad one time when I was ordering food at a restaurant, and I think it was for my brother's birthday. Like I was ordering something off guard, and my dad's got his knife and fork, and he knocked out my knife and fork, and he was eating my food off my plate, and I wanted to punch my father in the face, be like, what the fuck, man? Like, where's your fucking manners? You're just, I'm eating my food, and you're sneaking your knife and fork and knocking my knife and fork out of the way because you want to taste some of my food. And in an older generation, even if I know it's different with parents, but an older generation, you'd smack the shit out of somebody. But I would also thank this guy for the superintendent for not knocking this guy's ass out, really. But I do think that, pressing charges is important, and just saying that, okay, this disorderly conduct cannot happen. If it's assault, it's assault. Take it to the full extent of the law, because honestly, nobody should be putting hands on people. Definitely, I think it's a little unfortunate that if it's not racist, but it translates to racist, because obviously the history in America, white people thinking that they can put their hands on black people, or just saying, no, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do that, I can disrespect you, I can embarrass you, I can overstep, really. So sometimes these are like byproducts of when you just engage in these types of behaviors. You know, you're not entitled to put your hands on somebody. If you have a disagreement with somebody, you really have to judge the situation. And that person shaking hands with your kid because they're part of a event, they're a superintendent or whatever. You have every right to just be like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win the. You know what? Should I lose the battle to win the war? And in this case, it should be him saying, you know what, it's just a handshake. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world, really. Or if he's like, okay, well, I disagree with his policies. He wants to, do this thing or that thing. He might as well say, daughter, you're not going to this graduation because I disagree with the superintendent, and that be that, really. There's that would have been better and stuff like that. And then I also feel a little weird too, because sometimes parents will do that if they disagree with a superintendent or school policy. They will just pull their kid out of school. They will be like, okay, I'm forcing you to protest along with me. And sometimes people can be like, oh no, you're just being an asshole. You're just you're putting your issue on your daughter, really. And sometimes people do that, and sometimes people don't realize that that's actually really selfish, and it definitely is, So I think how he handled himself was just not appropriate. You know, he should just like not let his daughter go. He felt that strongly, but I also think more strongly he should have said, been humble and been like, okay, this is about my daughter. Do I want to put extra attention on myself? This is very similar to Will Smith and Chris Rock. This is about, saying, you know what, I disagree with somebody, so I want to respond the way that I want to respond. And if it's against ethics, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking more of my emotional maturity. And then results like this happen. So, as I said, it's unfortunate if this was not meant to be racial and now he's considered a racist. But there's also the other thing that happens. It's about presentation. He probably didn't understand. He probably in the moment didn't understand that honestly putting your hands on a black man, a white person doing that, it goes into that long history of racial stereotypes and of racism where black people were objectified by white people, or white people felt that they can put their hands on black people and alter their bodies, or just say, you're not doing this or that. Really, he probably didn't was not thinking about that in the moments, but that's a repercussion. I remember, and this is a tough story, that I used to work at a college, and I left that job really, and there were rumors about me, and one of the rumors was people thought that I was dangerous because I wore a black trench coat, and some people assumed that I was special needs because I was a little like quirky. But I remember understanding that, okay, you're wearing a black trench coat on a college, and even though I'm a worker and even though I'm not like threatening anybody, some people can say, okay, well, that's Columbine and whatever, really. So, even though that has nothing to do with it, and even though this may have nothing to do with him, with race, it's just not a good look, really. So sometimes, watch what you do and watch how you treat people, because people can have wrong interpretations. But ultimately, I think the big thing about this is, if it's not a racial thing, it's generation entitlement. Keep your fucking hands to yourself, and honestly, press charges against this guy. You do not put your hands on somebody else.